Hey there, colleague. How are you doing? I want to talk to you today about a recent disturbance in the force that has happened in my heart and soul upon learning about yet another AI tool. This tool is NotebookLM, and it popped across enough of my news sources last week that I decided to check it out, and it is going viral for a reason. So the whole idea here is that you can give this AI a article, a PDF, and then you load it in there. You click one button, and it will generate a deep dive podcast in which two podcast hosts discuss the material inside of the document, the article, the PDF, and kind of unpack it in a very natural, human-sounding, conversational type of way. So there's probably a number of use cases for this technology. Some may be educationally helpful. Others would be just to generate audio for people to listen to, more content to stuff the internet with. I'm going to reserve my judgments for it until after I let you listen to it. So if you want to fast forward to my thoughts on the technology, they're going to be about 7 minutes past this timestamp. Okay, let's go ahead and check out the tool, and then I'll share my thoughts. All right, so this is the article that I gave to NotebookLM. It's got a lot on mini sermons by an apologist, Winsome and Sure. Mini sermons by an apologist, Winsome and Sure. So this is what the NotebookLM software came up with upon being fed this one article.
Excitement can be so motivating.
Totally.
And the cool thing is, it's a skill you can actually cultivate.
Exactly.
It's not just like you're born with it or not.
Yes, and this is where Dave Stewart Jr. comes in.
Okay.
We are doing a deep dive today on his work on student motivation, and specifically, he has this concept called mini sermons.
I like that.
Now, before you think fire and brimstone.
Right.
This is much more practical and, dare I say,
Yeah.
fun.
Way more fun. We're taking excerpts from his blog and then also his book, The Will to Learn. And it's written for educators.
Right.
But I think what we unpack here can apply to anyone, honestly, that wants to boost either their own engagement with learning or inspire it in others.
For sure. Even if you're prepping for a meeting and you need to get buy-in from your team.
Totally.
Or you're mentoring someone new, or even just in your own life, reigniting that spark of curiosity about something.
Absolutely. Yeah. Stuart, he describes these as brief, frequent bursts of genuine enthusiasm. And it's all about the why behind learning something.
Okay.
Why is this knowledge? Why is this skill? Why is this journey valuable?
And this is where it gets really interesting to me, is that he uses this phrase, winsome and sure. It's not just hey, this will help you someday. It's digging a little deeper.
Totally. And winsome. It's about conveying a genuine joy and not a forced
right
rah-rah,
Yeah.
And then sure is all about really projecting confidence in its value, even if it's challenging.
Yeah, you're almost becoming a lawyer for the topic.
Yeah. He actually uses that analogy. He calls it the apologist approach, which I think is brilliant.
Okay.
Because it really highlights how important it is to truly believe in what you're teaching or sharing.
Yeah.
You're not just relaying information, but you're making a case for why it matters.
I'm hooked already. Okay, so we need to be winsome and sure, but what about the content of these mini sermons?
Right.
How do we actually come up with compelling arguments for why something is worth learning? Because
that's where his rainbow of why comes in.
Okay, rainbow of why, now we're talking.
Right.
Is this where is this a literal rainbow?
Okay.
Are we handing out Skittles?
I love it. It's a good idea.
Yeah.
But it's a little more metaphorical than that.
Okay.
So think of it, like a toolkit for brainstorming.
Got it.
So he gives all these different prompts to kind of help you uncover the compelling whys behind anything, really.
So it's not just hey, learning this will help get you a promotion.
Well, yeah, and let's be honest.
Yeah.
That's not always the most inspiring motivator.
No, not really.
So he really pushes us to go beyond just the practical application because, especially for someone who's new to a subject, that can be hard to see sometimes.
Yeah. Give me an example from the text that kind of brings this beyond utility idea to life.
Yeah, he talks about this student who made this really killer argument during a debate in class, completely dismantled the other side.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't that that debate skill was going to get them a certain job or anything.
Right.
But the point was they had this knowledge and they were able to think critically and articulate their ideas powerfully.
Right, because I mean, how often are we really using like specific facts that we learned in school in our day-to-day life?
Yeah, not very often.
But it's more about like how learning shapes our thinking.
Exactly. Exactly. So, these mini sermons is about highlighting those connections, those transferable skills, planting those seeds of possibility.
I like that.
It's like knowledge can be its own reward,
Yeah.
honestly.
This is becoming less of a teaching technique and more of a superpower that we can all use.
Right.
But okay, so let's say, like, I buy into this. How do we actually get good at delivering these mini sermons?
So he really emphasizes this. This is something you practice. Like, it's not an innate talent that you're just born with.
Right.
He actually has this really great hack. He talks about having like an index card, and you put 100 boxes on it.
Okay.
And then every time you consciously do a mini sermon, you like check off one of the boxes.
I love that. It's like gamifying your own growth.
Totally.
And it's that reminder that, like, even if it's clunky at first, the more you do it.
The more natural it becomes.
Yeah, for sure.
You're building that muscle memory. You're getting comfortable expressing the value of learning in a way that's genuine and compelling.
So I have to ask, like, what about the skeptics in the room? The ones that are like, yeah, but when will I ever use algebra?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When will I ever use this?
Yeah, exactly. Like, how do we address that because it's valid?
It is totally valid, and he has a really kind of surprisingly bold answer for that, which is basically tell them they won't.
Okay, now, come on.
Yeah.
All right, I'm listening.
So hear him out on this. He's not saying that algebra is useless, but it's more like if we get so fixated on like when we're going to use something, it really limits how we view what learning can do for us.
So it's shifting the focus from the what to the why.
Exactly. And I think when we're honest about that, even if it's, okay, you might not use this specific equation, you're building trust because you're acknowledging their question instead of being like, oh, it might be helpful someday.
And that's where the winsomeness comes in,
Exactly.
where it's not just like a lecture, but it's like you're having an authentic conversation about like this journey.
It's about fostering a love of learning, not just checking off boxes.
Yeah, I'm sure some listeners might be thinking like, well, that's great. I wish I had teachers who did this, but like, is it too late?
No, not at all. Like, it's
was-
never
yeah.
too late, right? You can embrace these principles now, make a difference in your own life and the lives of people around you.
So even if like we didn't have teachers who like gave us this constant stream of mini sermons about how great learning is, we can still create that culture now with our own kids, in our workplaces, or even just for ourselves.
Yeah, totally. Just imagine, like, if you regularly highlight the why behind what you're learning,
Yeah.
like, how would that change how you approach challenges, how you view setbacks, even just, like, how you choose what to learn next? Like,
Yeah.
what if you were excited to learn something new instead of feeling obligated?
Totally. It's like you're sending a message to your brain that this stuff matters.
Yes.
And not just our own brains, right? Like if we're genuinely excited about something, that can be contagious.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It can be so inspiring to see someone else who's genuinely curious and engaged.
Yeah.
It can rub off on you, for sure.
This has been so insightful, this deep dive on Dave Stewart Jr.'s work.
Yeah.
If we could leave our listeners with like one challenge for today, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say think about something you're learning right now that really excites you. And just take a minute to think about how you would explain the value of it to someone else.
Okay.
Like, craft your own little mini sermon, even if it's just a sentence or two.
I love it.
You might be surprised at what happens both for you and the person you're sharing it with.
Such a good challenge. And it's a good reminder that we can all shape our own learning journeys and inspire others too.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the power of mini sermons.
Yeah, this is fun.
Until next time, happy learning.
Okay, so let's just look at what kind of amazes me, and where I think like the understanding is off. So first of all, if we zoom all the way out, let's imagine that two colleagues read my blog article and they had this exact same conversation. They recorded it between the two of themselves. They came up with this on their own. I would be genuinely impressed. I would say that their understanding is quite advanced of what I was intending in writing the article and trying to describe the mini sermon strategy in my book, The Will to Learn. I'd be pretty impressed. There's some maybe misunderstandings, like early in the article or early in the interview, it mentions the inherent excitement of a topic, which is not the same thing as value. Value is broader and deeper than that. The Rainbow of Why kind of gets at that. But like this whole thing that they're doing at the end, one of the hosts says, okay, if we have one walkaway, what would it be? And they say, try to come up with a mini sermon about something that you're learning right now. And you may just be surprised about the effect that that exercise has on you as the sermon giver and on your listener. I mean, that's nowhere in the article. That's not in the article. But that is actually a really perceptive insight. That's a great recommendation after reading that article. And that would be my thoughts too. When you do mini sermons, you help yourself and you also help your listener. It's mutually beneficial for us as teachers to give mini sermons about the value of what we're teaching. There's just a lot of things in there that kind of blow my mind. Knowledge can be its own reward. I don't think I mentioned that anywhere in the article, but that is something that I deeply believe, that knowledge, like what I want my students, I never mentioned this word knowledge, but what I want my students to understand is that learning stuff is really, really good. Like it's beneficial. It's a net win. You become bigger as a human being as you gain knowledge. And through the gaining of knowledge and the practicing of skills, you gain wisdom and long-term flourishing. So like those are things that I believe, but not things that I stated in the article. So I guess now we're kind of shifting into like my bigger existential takeaways from this, which I'm just going to say this is rough draft thinking. I kind of hemmed and hawed on making this video because my thoughts aren't really clear on it. There just is a lot of disturbance for me. But I'm just going to share. So I think the disturbance is from two angles. One, me as a teacher, and the other, me as a writer. Let's start with me as a writer. So there's such an important part of being a writer in just creating work, putting ideas out into the world, clicking publish, attempting a draft today, and having a deadline when I'm going to send that draft out. That discipline of sending material into the world has been really, really important for me, and I think important for a lot of people that read my work. So one thing that generative AI has kind of caused me concern with the whole time, like ever since ChatGPT became popular a year and a half ago or so, it's just this idea is that the internet is rapidly getting flooded with the work not of humans, but of robots, of generative AI. And I think that cheapens the internet, makes the internet a place of just like stuff put out into the world by software, not by human beings. And to me, that's sad. I can envision an internet a year from now where half the things that I see on YouTube are robots talking to each other about ideas, and YouTubers gaining huge followings and getting tons of watch hours and all this stuff just by like feeding articles into websites and letting the websites do all the talking, all the learning, all the processing, all the human interaction. That is deeply dystopian. And for me as a teacher, I think it's just like this whole trend right now in teaching that's really, really huge is how can we use artificial intelligence to save ourselves time? How do we get AI to like plan our lessons and give feedback on student work and dot, 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 dot. On the one hand, I'm glad that there are these like labor-saving opportunities for teachers, because for me as a teacher of 133 students this year, I need all the labor-saving opportunities that I can get. But if I was feeding all my students writing into a feedback-generating machine, yeah, they might get useful feedback back. I mean, there's a lot of understanding that these robots are demonstrating of the work that I just gave them. So I can't imagine that we're far away from the time when you can put a student essay into this website and say, give feedback as if you're a teacher, and it will be able to do it. But in that whole calculus, there would be missing the human reality of me learning what each of my student writers sounds like, which is very laborious. And at the time of making this video, it's the first week of October 2024. Like, I'm exhausted, so tired, as most of us are during this long stretch of fall. But I know from my past years of experience that this is a normal exhaustion. It's a normal part of the race of a school year that we are running. And that on the other side of it is great reward, is knowing my students, knowing what they sound like when they write, seeing progress, that I'm actually identifying with my own brain, my own heart, my own soul as I watch the quality of their work progress. So I don't know what to make of this level of sophistication from a robot. I don't know what to make of that. I know that the conversation that I just listened to is way more interesting, probably, just in terms of the cadence of the speakers, the way that they're playing off one another, the life in their voices, the balance between humor and content. Like, that's a better conversation to listen to in a lot of ways than a conversation that I would have with an interviewer. That was more interesting than what I can do. And I don't know how to feel about that. I'm looking for the, in case of emergency, push this button to close Pandora's box. And I don't think that the button exists. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to continue to make blog articles from my mind and heart and send them to you. I'm going to continue to make videos like this one. Me, a human being, making them, trying to communicate to you, a human being. And I'm just going to keep doing that for as long as I'm able. And hopefully at least a few of you will find me, an actual human, more compelling than these much more winsome and sure robots that we just listened to. Colleague, the work that we are doing as actual human beings in our classrooms is deeply good, deeply beautiful, and deeply important. And I hope that if anything you get from this video sticks for a long time, that is what sticks. I'll see you next time.